Alright there guys, and welcome back to another video. Now, October wasn't a great month for the channel, views-wise, was it? I'm hoping that November can pick things back up. And we're starting November off with Let's Talk About Saw X. Or Saw 10, it doesn't matter, it means the same thing. Yes, a brand new Saw movie. The first one that has John Kramer in since Jigsaw from 2017. I was fairly excited for this movie. If you remember, in the previous video I posted last week for Halloween, I talked about how I'd watched the first 5 Scream movies in anticipation for the release of Scream 6. I did the same thing here for the Saw movies. I watched every Saw movie apart from Spiral, and you don't really need to watch Spiral to understand where this is going. In anticipation for Saw 10. So, without further ado, let's get straight into it. The movie begins with our favourite killer, not a killer, John Kramer, in a hospital, being told his cancer symptoms and how long he has left to live. Which the doctor says, a year maybe? Could be only months. Obviously, months was the answer because he dies at the end of Saw 3. So yeah, Saw 10 is a prequel. As far as I'm aware, is a prequel to every Saw movie in the franchise, apart from the first one. Apparently. I could be wrong about that, but that's what I've heard. So, John is going through the hospital and he sees a doctor in a patient's room at his desk side drawer going through his belongings, clearly looking to steal them. Then it flashes forward to the first trap of the movie and the one that was all over the promotional material. The trailers, the posters, everywhere. The one with the guy who has those tubes coming out of where his eyes are. That trap. John, of course, does his iconic, "Hello, I want to play a game." Which we'd been waiting a while for that. We hadn't seen that since Jigsaw. Because, of course, Spiral is the only Saw movie John Kramer is not in at all. So the trap in question for this doctor is the one that I just mentioned. It's got a mechanism where he has like a device attached to his face with tubes coming out of where the eyes are, and he has this fingerless glove type thing attached to his right hand. Hang on. Sorry for that. He has this fingerless glove type machine attached to his right hand, and he has a nub next to his left hand that goes from 1 to 5. Every time he twists it to go up by 1, the mechanism on his right hand will snap one of his fingers back. So essentially, he does this, turns it, and his finger goes like that, but snaps all the way back. Basically, he has 60 seconds to do that to all 4 fingers and thumb before his eyes get drilled out. Unfortunately for him, he only makes it to about the 3rd one, and then poof. The machine drills through his eyes, sends them through the tube and out the other end. It's very brutal and gruesome, and a very solid trap. But why was it the very first one? Surely if you were going to show all of this and make this trap up to be the biggest and most spectacular one of the movie, surely you wouldn't show it off first, right? But they do. So we've already seen the trap that was all over the trailers. Then we come back to the present. Then we go back to the present where John is in a cancer support group, and next to him is a guy called Henry, who says he has stage 4 cancer and it's terminal. And then John explains his situation. later on, John is just walking around the city, and he sits down at a cafe, just outside a cafe, and Henry happens to show up, and he tells John that his cancer has been cured, even though it was stage 4 and terminal. And he tells John about this thing called the Peterson Project, and a man called Finn Peterson who created this project. It's all about creating new surgery to cure the supposed incurable. It's a cocktail mixed with surgery. That's what he describes it as. And he even lifts up his shirt to show John a blue scar that goes from here all the way down his stomach. And he gives John a link to search up for it. So John goes home, and that very night he does just that. He has a look and finds a video from Dr. Finn Peterson himself explaining what the Peterson Project is. So John emails the Peterson Project, and he gets a phone call later that night from Dr. Cecilina Peterson, Finn Peterson's daughter. And she tells him about the project, what it is and what it does, and she says that because no government approves of this procedure, they have to do all of this in very secret locations. Henry got his surgery done in Norway, but they've already moved on from there, and they're moved to Mexico, and that's where John heads off to. John is driven to the hospital in the secret location by his taxi driver Diego, who gets stopped by a black van with these 2 Mexican army soldiers that come up and take John to the hospital because it's got to be a secret location so no one can find it. So John then meets the staff at the hospital, Dr. Cecilina herself, Nurse Valentina, Gabriella, Matteo, which is all, and that's all of them. He even gets a tour of the hospital, even a tour of the surgery room that he will be in later the following day. And he meets a new patient called Parker, who becomes important again later on. John also meets this little kid called Carles, who's basically, as Cecilina described, the football star of the village and the place all of this happens in. So John meets everyone and then settles down for the night before the surgery the following morning. So John is told that the surgery for him is going to have him dropping in and out of consciousness during the surgery. And it also has a video feed playing so John can look at what the surgeons are doing to him. But it's a Saw movie, so not everything goes swimmingly, and as we know, of course this surgery doesn't work because John still has the cancer in Saw 2 and 3. So clearly, this surgery is not going to work. And the surgery cost 250 grand. The fact that John was just able to drop that straight on the table for him is pretty impressive. So he goes out to buy Gabriella a gift because she was the one who welcomed him into the place, even though she can't speak English. But you'll find out later she can. So John makes his way back to his accommodation, to look for everyone. But no one's there. Everyone is gone. So he makes his way down to the surgery room and everything has been It looks like someone has been causing a bit of a ruckus because there's papers everywhere, there's monitors on the floor. Like someone had been in and ruffled everything up. So John picks up the monitor and it has a slideshow. So he presses play on the first slide, which shows a video explaining the surgery and what everything is, which John of course already knows that because he was told on the phone. He skips to the next slide and it shows him a video feed. The exact same video feed he was looking at when they were doing surgery on him, showing they didn't do anything to him. The Peterson Project is one big scam. Because they already have a pre-recorded video feed to show the patient at the time of the surgery to make them think that's what's happening to them when it isn't. And with this being a Saw movie, you know what John's going to do next? He's going to go and take every single person he's just met at this hospital and bring them in to test them, to see if they truly value life. He even does this to Diego, the taxi driver, and he gives John some information that becomes important later on. But John can't do all of this stuff himself, so in order to get Gabriella, Valentina, Matteo, and Dr. Cecilina herself all back to John's essentially makeshift lab for this movie, he enlists the help of Amanda from the first 3 movies. Yeah, she is here again. And she, of course, we first see her in full pig head attire because it wouldn't be a Saw movie without good old pig head as well. Once John has everyone, he, of course, does his, "Hello, I want to play a game," again, and gives each of them some different tests. First up is Valentina. She has a very, very sharp wire just in front of her neck that even just grabbing with her hands cuts her hands very badly. What she has to do to survive is she has to cut her own leg off with the tools provided to her, and then stick a tube into her leg and have enough ounces of blood go to the other side to fill up. It's a bit like one of the final traps of Saw 2, where the 2 remaining survivors have to stick their hands into that hole that has those blades in that cuts them, that they have to both give 5 ounces of blood each to make the full 10. It reminds me of that trap from Saw 2. And she just barely doesn't manage to get enough blood through the other side of the tube, and she gets her head cut off. So she's had her head and leg cut off. Then Parker decides to make his way over to the warehouse where John's makeshift lab is. He's knocked out by Amanda when he finally gets in. But this was somewhat planned by him, as him and Cecilina had already planned this through. They were thinking just as much ahead as what John was. Although not quite, John's always one step ahead at least. So after Valentina is killed, and John and Amanda are talking to Parker, and they're not looking at everyone else, Cecilina manages to grab hold of, get Valentina's body over to her, cuts her stomach open, pulls out her intestines, and then throws them to Gabriella. Then Gabriella throws them to Matteo, and Matteo throws them back to Cessalina, so they can use it as essentially a rope to pull a cart that's in the middle of all three of them, with some tools that could help them break out of their chains. They don't make it very far because Amanda comes down and takes away Valentina's intestines and throws them out of reach. And then the guy on the thumbnail of this video finally gets to make his re-entrance to the series. Billy the Puppet. He didn't get used anywhere near as much in this movie as I'd liked him to. He comes in on his trusty little tricycle with some supplies on the back of it. One of them is a hammer. Used because Gabriella needs that. Gabriella needs that hammer because she's up next. I'm not going to talk about what happens to Matteo because if I'm being honest, I've already forgotten. What happened to him. I'm pretty sure he gets killed, but I can't remember how because it can't have been that spectacular if I've already forgotten. So Gabriella has to break out of her chain. She's got a chain around her arm, around her wrist, and her foot. A bit like how Lawrence Gordon and Adam from the first movie had a chain around their foot each. Kind of like that. Basically, she has to smash her hand and her foot to break out of it, whilst there's a radiation machine blaring heat towards her and melting her face off at the same time. She just barely manages to survive, but then Cessalina just stamps her face in and kills her anyway. Parker also, after being untied, starts threatening John and Amanda and forces the two of them to put themselves in a trap, and while Cessalina is allowed to get out of her trap. She also happens to see that Carles, the little kid from earlier, arrives at the warehouse, and she ends up making him a new test subject that John did not choose. Carles likes John because when they first met, John managed to fix his bicycle for him, so he likes John for that. The final trap, at least the main trap that was going to go that John and Carles get put in, is essentially going to drown them in blood. There are these two tubes that are one above each of them that just spurt out blood onto them, and there are there's a lever on next to each of them, and whenever they pull the lever, the thing they're lying on top of will rotate to their side, and the blood will splurt onto them. So the two of them keep pulling back and forth to keep each other alive. Whilst Cessalina and Parker are looking for the money, because of course a lot of patients paid a lot of money for this. They find the bag that the money is supposedly in, they take it away, and that starts a 10-minute timer. John was always one step ahead of Cessalina, even when it looks like they had the upper hand. The gun that Parker had doesn't work because while he was knocked out, John took all of the gunpowder out of the bullets from his gun, so they don't work. John and Amanda managed to unlock their chains and get themselves out, and Carles. And the room that they were just in, that Parker and Cessalina are now in, basically is being filled up with poisonous gas, like carbon monoxide. And there's a hole in the wall that they can, but only one hole that they can stick their head through and not suffocate to death. But there's only, as I said, there's only one hole, so only one of them can actually survive. John told Parker earlier in the movie that Cecilina is going to kill him, as did Amanda, and he just told Amanda to F off. Well, maybe you should have listened to her, because Cecilina stabs Parker, killing him, and then sticks her head through the hole in order to not suffocate. John, Amanda, and Carlos leave her there, and the movie ends with the three of them walking out of the warehouse in what's strangely a happy ending for a Saw movie. This is something that never happens. When did a Saw movie have a happy ending? That's not right. That's not how this usually goes. And then the credits start rolling. But that's not quite the end of the movie, is it? Because you know when you're sitting in the sat in the cinema, and when the adverts and the trailers start playing, the lights go out, and when the credits start rolling for the movie you've just finished, the lights come back on. Well, the lights didn't come back on when the credits started rolling. That tells you that we're not done. There's something left. And we return to the iconic bathroom of the original movie, and of course it was in Saw 2 as well. It does the iconic shot that it did in the first and second movie, where it's the camera facing up at the lights coming on 2 by 2, with Henry chained up by his hands in the middle of that bathroom. Because John, of course, wasn't going to let Henry get away with lying to him. He lifts up Henry's shirt and there's no scar. Because it was all a lie, it was all a con. But who steps out from behind Henry? Detective Mark Hoffman. Yes, someone we haven't seen since Saw 7 has made his return. We get a sneaky little cameo right at the end in the mid-credit scene for Hoffman. The only thing that could have made that scene better than it already was if John and Hoffman walked out of the bathroom and John did his iconic game over as he slams the sliding door shut like he did at the end of the first movie. That's the only thing I think would have made the scene even better than it already was. And that concludes my look at Saw 10. Personally, I liked the movie, but I didn't think it was as good as it could have been. Like, Billy was very much underused. We didn't even get to hear the iconic Billy the Puppet laugh that we're so used to. We spent quite a lot of time without the traps before, and then we spent a lot of time with them. Kind of would like to have spent a little bit more time with the traps. And this is the only Saw movie that doesn't have a cop plot. Every Saw movie is made up of a cop plot and a trap plot. But this movie didn't have a cop plot. So that was a bit odd. But yeah, overall I liked it. And that's going to be the end of the video. I hope you guys have enjoyed. If you have, please be sure to leave a like. Subscribe if you're new. And until next time, catch you later.